no matter what community you're from. You could be a college student, a policewoman, a fireman, or even a local business owner. No matter what your occupation is, put all those together and community is us. Welcome to Community is Us. Today I am your host, Paul Morgan, and I have a very special guest, Shnell Swain, who is the founder of EndChildMolestation.com. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Honored to be here.
You're welcome. Now let's get right into it. You were born and raised in Lynn, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. You were the second child out of 4 daughters.
Yeah.
You're also a writer, a producer, and a child safety advocate. Tell me about that.
Yes, well, I am from Massachusetts, like you said, born and raised in Lynn. In my childhood, I experienced sexual abuse myself, as did some of my sisters and other family members. And that became the motivating factor for me, starting in EndChildMolestation.com and becoming a child safety advocate. My mission is to educate children and adults and teach them how to prevent, detect, and report child sexual abuse. So our mission on the site is to end sexual abuse through education. So that is the reason for me, starting in EndChildMolestation.com.
Oh, okay, cool. Now I know there was something brought up about most of the predators, they seek out jobs to be around children. Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah, well, 90% of victims report having been victimized by somebody within their social circle. Mm-hmm. So that means 90% of children who are sexually abused are abused by someone that they know and trust. And what we found is that oftentimes sexual predators put themselves in position to have access to children. Mm. You know, they can't offend a child, they can't assault a child without having access to them. Mm-hmm. So typically, they put themselves in position to have access to children. They get a job where there are children around, where they have easy access to children. They take babysitting services. There's a lot of things that they do to put themselves in position to give them access to kids. So that is something that people need to be aware of, and that information, like you mentioned, is available on the site.
Okay. Now, what about far as when parents are looking for daycare services and stuff? What should they look out for?
I think all parents should definitely require the place that's going to be caring for your child to have a background check. That's something that should be done. And I think that's something that can be done for a relatively short amount of money, a small amount of money, maybe like $30 or something. Mm-hmm. But definitely, I would suggest having a background check done on all persons that are in the home. Mm-hmm. Because we have heard of cases where there are child care providers that have boyfriends who are predators, and they know that their children going to be children there in the house. Mm-hmm. So it's important that all people who are in the house have a background check. So I would strongly suggest that.
Okay, now another thing, I have a son and he's 11 years old, and I'm very cautious of where I send him, because sometimes he say, hey, Daddy, I want to go to my friend's party at my school, and it's at their house, and, their parents are going to come pick me up. And I feel bad sometimes to not let him go, but I don't know the other child's parents. I don't know. There could be an uncle sleeping in a room just waiting for the party to start. I mean, now, is that too much for a parent to do, to not let a child go to a party? Or?
Well, I think there is such thing as a healthy fear, of course. If something in your intuition is saying not to go, I would trust your own judgment. However, we don't want, to parent out of fear either, so that's why it's important to empower ourselves and empower the child so that, unfortunately, there are predators in all aspects of life, unfortunately at churches sometimes, in schools, at their daycare, all predators come in all walks of life. So you can't totally protect them from ever, encountering a bad person. But what you can do is empower them by educating them on how to respond if that person makes a sexual advance towards them. So, we don't necessarily want to parent out of fear, but we want to empower the child by teaching them how to detect a potentially dangerous situation.
Wow, so they could be more aware.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the best protection for your child. Saying, oh, you can't go here, you can't go there, because eventually they're going to have to go into the real world. They're going to always be in a position where they could be potentially harmed.
Right.
So the best proof is to educate them and empower them on how to assert themselves against the predator.
Okay, but like in a fun way, kind of.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why we create the book sets. I created the book sets with the mindset that I wanted to create the book that I wish I had as a child. That would give me all of the information, teach me how to trust my intuition, listen to that little voice inside. It talks about secrecy, which is another important aspect of abuse. Predators rely on secrecy. You know, they rely on that child keeping that act a secret. So it's very important that we talk to children about why it's important not to keep that kind of secret. So again, the best thing we can do to safeguard our children from abuse is to empower them by educating them.
Well, that's interesting that you brought that up, because I was reading something where a lot of predators make the child feel like it's their fault of the situation, and then at the same time a lot of children don't come forward because they feel shamed and hurt, and you know, maybe end up hating themselves.
Absolutely. You know, what the abuser does, their job is, you know, what we need to be mindful of is that, you know, which is why we refer to them as tricky people in the book set. They are tricky people. They're manipulative people. They're very cunning. They come off as very unassuming people. They're usually they're notoriously friendly. That's why it's hard to believe an allegation of abuse when it you know, involves someone who is likable, because you're like, wow, not this person. He's so nice, or she's so nice. He's not the boogeyman, you know. But abusers don't look like the boogeyman. You know, they don't look like, you know. I mean, sometimes there are cases, but typically, the boogeyman wouldn't earn your trust. You know, if I were going to sexually abuse someone, I need to come off as being Mrs. Nice Guy, Mrs. Nice Girl. You know, so my motive, my thing would be to seduce the child and also to seduce the parent, you know, and that's what they do. That's what predators do, you know. They're very manipulative, and they manipulate the child, and oftentimes they use what is referred to as the affection lure, and they buy gifts, and there's a seduction that takes place, you know. There is a lot of manipulation involved, so they befriend the parents, and like I said, they're usually very nice, unassuming people, and so it's not hard for a child to like them, you know, and to trust them, you know. So that's oftentimes what abusers do, and how they earn a child's trust.
Okay.
You know? So that's something we need to be aware of, you know, and that's also something that's in the book set, and why it's important for parents to really get this book set to help you initiate this seemingly awkward dialogue.
Right.
You know?
Can we take a look at the book real quick?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay, now this one is...
This is the girls' edition.
The girls' edition. Okay. And this is the one with the coloring and the stories and stuff
well,
like that?
both the girls' edition and the boys' edition. Okay. Basically, they follow the character in the book, and they're learning games as you go along in the book. And then they're at the end of the book, it's like reinforcement time. You know, they're reinforcing the material that's been learned. So we ask them questions just to kind of drill them on what they learned. But it's very informative, and it's a fun way for them to learn about a very ugly situation, ugly topic, you know. So, like I said, it touches on secrecy. It touches on why it's important not to keep those types of secrets. And it also breaks down for them what are considered good secrets and what are considered bad secrets. It also speaks to children about listening to that little voice. It also speaks to children about how to assert themselves when it's somebody that they know and they trust, and they make them feel awkward, you know. So it teaches them all of that, and which is very, very important, because like we just talked about, 90% of the time it's not someone the child is unfamiliar with. It's actually someone that the child is very familiar with and oftentimes loves and trusts. So when a person makes a sexual advance towards them that is someone they love and trust, they're numb, they're frozen by fear, and they don't know how to respond to it. So that has to be something that we teach them. We don't ever want them to find themselves in that position and not know how to react. We want to teach them how to respond if that ever occurs. You know.
Okay, so what do you think about the Penn State situation with the scandal, the sex scandal against Sadowski?
Yeah, you know, it's very sad. I think, however, it's not shocking to me. I hear of cases like this all the time. It's all too common. And like I said, it's not shocking to me at all. I think that the sad part is that the person who actually witnessed this 10-year-old in the shower was not mandated by law, which is why he's not under arrest, to report that to anyone other than his superior at his job. I think all persons who witness a sexual crime against a child should be mandated by law to report that to a law enforcement agency, and not just a superior at a job. But I think that to me was the most bothersome, outside of obviously the child molestation allegation itself, was that there's no legal ramification for that. I mean, you know, it happened, and it's just another confirmation of how secrecy is so damaging when it comes to child molestation and child predators, and how they empowered this person by, you know, totally disregarding these allegations.
Yeah, not being concerned about the kids.
Not being concerned about the children. And so to me it was sad on many levels. But again, it's not shocking because it's something that you see all the time. It's really a common trend when it comes to sexual abuse. You know, unfortunately, we have a prestigious school who chose to protect their image rather than to protect children.
Yeah. And then, you know, I was reading a report about that also. According to the authorities, his first victim he took to football games. He started buying them gifts, laptops, and computers.
That's a common theme with, I read the whole 23-page indictment against him, and it's a common theme throughout it. That was his protocol. That's what he did.
Now, is that part of the grooming?
That's absolutely a part of the grooming process. You know, and then it wasn't a surprise to me that he founded a place for underprivileged boys. You know, another common theme when it comes to child predators. Here we have a person who was highly esteemed in the community and who obviously felt a sense of entitlement, and an overprivileged person. So, you know, it's no surprise that he would found a group home for boys, underprivileged boys, you know. So clearly, I think that speaks volumes in itself.
Exactly.
And it's just, again, another sad confirmation of just how prevalent and acceptable child sexual abuse is in our society.
Right. I mean, and it seems to me it's the same story all the time. It's like some type of secret society, because every time when you hear, you know, God bless the dead, like Michael Jackson, all these different guys being accused of sexual abuse towards kids, and they always say, oh, I was only in the shower with him, I didn't touch him. Oh, I was just laying reading a story on the bed with him. You know, to me, it doesn't make a grown man, that doesn't make sense.
That's right, that's right. Any grown man should not be in a shower or a bedroom or anything with a child. That's totally inappropriate. And that's why books like this and this dialogue is so important for us to have. And again, I thank you for inviting me here to have this dialogue with you, because it is very important that we have ongoing and consistent conversations with our children, because there are people who will oftentimes take advantage of a child's period. Just everything, you know, that's why they love children, because they can easily manipulate them. And so we have to stand in the gap for our children. And I think that by having shows like yours, and where, you know, you invite people who are doing things in the community to open up these kinds of dialogues, that's a positive step in the right direction. But we certainly need more of that. We need to do more of talking about things that really matter, and our children really matter, and their safety and well-being is not only a human rights violation and a civil rights violation, but it's certainly a moral violation.
Shnell, Swain, thank you for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That's all the time we have. You guys have a good day. See you later.